The fate of California's death penalty is still up in the air despite voters passing Proposition 66 in November.
We all realized when we wrote it that, are we going to fix it overnight?
Well, the ballot initiative was designed to speed up executions. It is now stalled in the courts after a lawsuit was filed to halt it.
Now the California Supreme Court is concerned about a key provision of the measure. New tonight, CBS 13's Sharon Roget joins us live from the Capitol with what it's taking issue with here. Sharon.
Sam and Adrian, in November, 51% of California voters chose to keep the death penalty but speed up the process so it doesn't take decades. Proponents of Prop 66 said that they would shorten the time of state appeals to 5 years. But just yesterday, the California Supreme Court said that 5-year deadline is just not realistic. California voters realized that the state's death penalty system was bogged down by decades of appeals and needed reform, and Prop 66 was their answer.
This was the will of the voters, and they want the system fixed, and that's what we're going to do.
The ballot initiative said within 5 years of the adoption of the initial rules, the state courts shall complete the state appeal process. But during oral arguments Tuesday, several California Supreme Court justices made it clear that the court would not be able to meet the measure's 5-year deadline for resolving death penalty appeals without compromising attention to other kinds of cases, and are now questioning if this provision of the measure was truly mandatory.
We all realized when we wrote it that, are we going to fix it overnight? No, but we've got to have time limits.
Sacramento District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert says it wasn't a hard and fast timeline, but merely a target.
We recognize that the justices focused on one or two provisions of it, but there are many other provisions of the initiative that will in fact reform the death penalty.
Well, the 5 years might not be an achievable goal in the short term, but it is in the long term.
Yet the court already has a backlog of more than 300 death penalty appeals ready to be heard and decided.
The initiative does relieve the California Supreme Court of a good chunk of its workload by moving it to the superior courts. And once the backlog is worked off, the 5-year time frame is going to be a reasonable one.
But Ron Briggs, who supported getting rid of the death penalty, is the one who filed a lawsuit against the state. He shares the justices' concerns, saying the supporters of the measure are now backtracking from language that said they shall complete the state appeal process in 5 years.
They sold the voters on shall, and they gave them should or may. And that takes out the time limits, and so you may not ever speed the system up because there's no consequence to it.
Now again, although the voters voted for this ballot measure, the Supreme Court can throw it out altogether, or they can decide to keep it. A decision is expected in 90 days.
All right, Sharon, we'll have an update in 90 days here. Thanks so much for that.